Today we're taking a look at Iceland's two-time finalist at World's Strongest Man, Eythor Ingolfsson Melsted. So Eythor, two-time finalist at World's Strongest Man, and very recently we saw him compete at Europe's Strongest Man, and he seems to be peaking very nicely for World's Strongest Man.
Yeah, Eythor's one of those guys who none of us really talk about him much, but he's always there or thereabouts, isn't he? He's just quietly chipping away and rising up the ranks.
Yeah, he isn't someone that people are kind of talking about winning competitions, but he puts in some very solid performances. And to be a two-time finalist at World's Strongest Man, he needs to be kind of looked at and considerably and considered. Very good at the stones. He's won a place into the final two times on the stone off. So with that, let's not say he's a banker, but he's got experience on it and he's made the final twice. I think he needs to be taken very seriously in any group he gets put in.
Definitely. So before we look at the events for this year's World's Strongest Man, let's first look at some stats and facts about Eythor Ingolfsson Melsted. So as you've already said, Eythor is a two-time World's Strongest Man finalist, and he's a two-time winner of the Strongest Man in Iceland. So far in his career, he's been on 3 international podiums, and just a couple of weeks ago, he placed 4th at Europe's Strongest Man. And as you also said, Lozzie, the 2 times he's made it into the final, it's been by winning the ever-controversial stone off.
Yeah, you know, we can see from the comments, some people love the stone off, some people like us despise it. No, I don't despise it, I'm just fed up of it, if I'm totally honest.
Yeah.
But
anything that goes on for that long, I would get bored of, I think.
Definitely, but the thing you have to deal with as an athlete is that is part of what you have to be up against. So you need to prepare well. And my athlete head on me would be thinking, right, I need to make sure the stones are good. And then I'm looking at athletes that are good at stones. Yeah. And Eythor's stones are very solid. Yeah,
he's decent at stones. But let's look at the events he's going to have to do in this year's competition. So the starting with the loading race, and when we saw him do this recently at Europe's Strongest Man, it actually wasn't a great event for him. He ended up placing 10th.
That's right. It was his worst performance at Europe's Strongest Man. However, I think, you know, if we look at most of his performances on loading events, they're not too bad. He's had some solid performances at World's Strongest Man in the loading before, and notoriously, one of his worst events is kind of the farmer's walk, or moving with like a wheelbarrow.
He has said his grip isn't great. He's got those sort of shorter fingers and very chunky hands.
Yeah, and I think that's what slowed him down more than anything at Europe's, was the wheelbarrow part of that, which he won't have to deal with at World's Strongest Man. So I don't think basing his performance from Europe's is the smartest thing to do when you look at how the event will play out at Worlds.
And also, to be fair to him, when he did the loading race at 2020 World's Strongest Man, he was second in his group, behind only JF Karan.
So moving on to the deadlift. Now, he was 5th at the deadlift at Europe's Strongest Man. Amazingly, his PR in competition is only 360 kilos. Yeah. I'm very confident that he's done more than that in the gym, and he's capable of more than that now if he gets an opportunity to do a max. Although deadlift is an event that he is very beatable at as well. A lot of athletes are capable of beating him, but his deadlift's improving solidly. It's got better over the years. He's even won the deadlift at the Magnus Ver Magnusson Classic. So not a weakness, but just not a strength as well.
Yeah.
So log is a much more of a strong event for Eythor. 3rd at Europe's Strongest Man recently, and he was 2nd on the log in his group at World's Strongest Man last year. Yeah. So an event that he will be feeling confident on. I think the fact that it's a log ladder is going to suit him. Yeah. Again, he's not the biggest 1 rep max guy.
No.
But for reps and for speed and putting kind of together a log ladder, he's done very well in the past. I think he'll be looking forward to this event.
Now, Eythor really surprised me on the Conan Circle at Europe's Strongest Man. Absolutely no one was talking about him. I know Pa had done some really good numbers in the gym and had done good numbers in competition before, so a lot of people were thinking he was going to win. A lot of us guessed that the Ukrainians would be really, really good, which they ended up being. But it was actually Eythor who came in 3rd place behind the Ukrainians, beating the likes of Pa, Bish, Ivers, etc.
Bish and Pa, both very good. We've seen that experience of them using the Conans before, and as you said, we expected the Ukrainian athletes to be really good. Yeah. But Eythor sneaks in just the way he does, nice and quiet, and puts in a performance. He does though, doesn't he?
He's like an assassin. We should call him the Icelandic assassin.
Well, he's not someone that's like loud on Instagram.
Not at
He's
all.
not kind of flashy.
He's not loud in real life either.
No, very
he's just
calm.
a really cool,
He'd actually
guy.
make a cool bad guy though.
Yes,
kind of
he
his
would.
look
His
is awesome.
voice and his look, yeah.
And he just keeps coming.
Yeah,
He
he
just
keeps coming at you. Yeah. Terrifying.
Yeah, I think this is going to be another really good event for Eythor. I mean, we saw some incredible performances for first place and second place, both of which broke the former world record on that. So Eythor will be thinking, I can get big points on this one at World's Strongest Man. The kettlebell toss. Now, stature-wise, you don't think it's the best event for him. Looking at him, he's a little bit shorter and stocky. However, he's done well on throwing events in the national scene, competing in competitions in Iceland.
Yeah.
We haven't seen him kind of raise that level to international competition. So it'll be interesting to see how he does against some of the more established athletes. I feel if he can get some decent points on this one, then we could... I genuinely believe he could be a threat for the top three.
Yeah, absolutely. I would not be surprised in the slightest, no matter what group you throw him in, to see Eythor on a stone off again. Like with the throwing, one thing he does, he just prepares really well. And I just think, he gets his head down. Like you said, he's not flashy. He's just working hard and he's improving all the time. And we're really seeing that in his results. So wouldn't be surprised at all to see him in a stone off. Wouldn't be surprised to see him win a stone off again for the third time. Why not?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of athletes that he could end up against that could be a problem.
Absolutely.
I think when we look at his stone off performances in the past, maybe haven't been...
He hasn't been up against the top stone lifters.
No, but... And maybe there's been, he's been against guys that have been injured or...
Off their game.
You can only go on who you're against.
Of course.
But he's one of those athletes that on a stone off has a great chance. He's already made the final twice.
We don't know how far he can go either because the other guys always failed. How far can we push Eythor?
On a stone off.
Maybe he can lift it 20 times. We don't know. We don't know.
I'd be impressed if he does it 20 times. But,
if anyone
Auntie Liz is going crazy again with her non-lifting experience.
It's the lack of sleep.
But Eythor is a threat, I feel, to challenge to get to another final. I think if he makes the final again, that would be
3 out of 4. That would be, yeah.
Absolutely. And, I don't see him being a threat in the final. We can have a quick look at the final events, but the events in the groups, we've already seen he's good at these type of events from Europe's Strongest Man. In terms of training, he'll have been thinking about peaking for Worlds, so you can expect to see a little bit better by the time he's at Worlds. Now let's look at the final events and see if that is quite the same as the events in the heats. So we're starting with the Fingal's Fingers, and it's an event that I've not seen him do before.
We don't have any data of him doing it at all.
Okay, and he's a slightly shorter athlete. That tends not to be advantageous in a Fingal's Finger. It's an event that I think a slow 5 is going to score pretty decent points.
Yeah.
Is Eythor capable of 5?
I don't know.
That's the question. I think it will be tough to do all 5, and I think if you're only doing 4, then your chances of scoring big points are going to be lower down. So we said already his deadlift's solid, it's been improving, he came 5th at Europe's Strongest Man. However, we add a lot more big deadlifters when it gets to World's Strongest Man, and I believe he came last in the final at World's Strongest Man last year on the deadlift.
Joint last, but yeah, it was a car deadlift, and joint last was something like 9 reps, which is crazy.
You can be a 400 kilo deadlifter and come last in the final at World's Strongest Man. That is the reality of what you could potentially be up against if all the top deadlifters make it through. So the shield carry is the next event. Now this is an event where he's got a lot of experience of carrying events. Obviously Conan Circle, we've seen he's very good at. Came 9th at the Husafell sandbag carry at the Rogue Invitational. He's done the Husafell stone itself a number of times in Iceland. So that will be great experience for him. However, I think there's going to be guys that will be a little bit better. He's got shorter arms, so he can't quite get as far around as maybe some of the taller athletes can. And I think it'll be an event where he can pick up a few points, but maybe not enough to really warrant big points to help him with the other weaker events.
Max Dumbbell. Now, we haven't seen anyone do Max Dumbbell, not really. We've seen the likes of Mateusz and Alexei push it for
a couple of
world records and a couple of other guys, But for most of the guys, we don't really know what their max dumbbell looks like. For Eythor, we do know that at the Rogue Invitational last year, he lifted the first 2 SEER dumbbells. Now, he was in very good company, to be fair to him. There were some great dumbbell lifters who didn't do much more than that.
These are going to be massive dumbbells as well.
Yeah.
These are going to be bigger than the SEER dumbbells. And they get bigger and bigger, each one that they use. So it's going to be an interesting twist on it.
It's a massive dumbbell.
It is. It's going to be, if they get up to the 150 kilos, 330 pound type dumbbells, they are going to be huge.
Yeah.
And that may be a factor. But he's not a bad dumbbell presser. I just think there's a lot of very good dumbbell pressers, and I think that's going to be Eythor's issue in the final. He's a very solid lifter, very good all round, no huge weakness, just no big strengths to compete in a final and pick up big points. And he's one of those athletes, every time we see him get to a final, he drifts off a little, 8th, 9th, 10th place, and I kind of feel that we're going to see the same if he does make the final this time round.
And I guess to sort of reiterate what you were just saying, last year he did the bus pull and he placed 9th, and there's a truck pull back in the final again this year.
Yeah, and honestly, I can't see him doing an awful lot better than maybe 8th on the truck pull. It's an event that he's not had an amazing amount of experience with. He's a smaller athlete, probably potentially be the lightest guy if he made the final.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I said it on the last event, and I feel like it's the same story when we move on to the stones. Although he's a good stone lifter and he's made the final on the stones, when it comes to a run, and we're talking about being up against the likes of Tom Stonkman, Brian Shaw, Trey Mitchell, these kind of guys, Kiliashkovsky, there's so many good stone lifters. I just can't see him doing enough to get a top 3 place on any event and really kind of give himself a chance of getting in that top half of a final. I do, however, believe he is a threat to make the final.
Absolutely.
I think the events in the heat suit him more, and that's kind of where I see Eythor. I think he's going to be dangerous for anyone in his group. I think if he can make the final, he'll be very, very pleased with his performance this year.
Well, like we've said already, just making the final is going to be such a huge accomplishment this year because the groups are going to be nasty.
Making the final any year, making it to World's Strongest Man, you're one of the best 30 athletes on the planet. You make that final, you're one of the top 10 in the world. And it's a huge achievement for any athlete, but obviously different athletes have different expectations on themselves. Yeah. Some are happy to just be at World's Strongest Man, some are really happy if they make their final, and some won't be happy unless they win. And that's the exciting thing.
Yeah.
So Eythor Ingolfsson Melsted, he is coming back to World's Strongest Man. Can he make it 3 finals in a row? That would be a huge achievement. Let us know your thoughts as always, guys. Comment below. Are you looking forward to seeing Eythor compete? Let us know all your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe to the channel, and we'll catch you guys next time. Stay strong.